Welcome back to the Woodworking Talk Show. And before we get started, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this episode. This is a good one. Hey, Bob, you know how other podcasts have like big tool companies or hardware companies?
Yeah.
Okay, so this episode is sponsored by a company that offers the best precision engineered tools in the world. You want to take a guess?
Oh, man. I would hate to be wrong.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
It's the best precision engineered tools in the world for your family jewels.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Curious?
I'm talking about Manscaped. That's how this show rolls.
Cool.
Well, you see, weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I was not. No.
Guys, get into the 21st century. This ain't the 80s any longer. The days of just letting everything grow like a Neanderthal are long gone, unless you're a bear. That's different. No judgment. Some of my best friends are bears. So Manscaped just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. That's a perfect grade point average.
Wow.
Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with their sensitive areas. And, I got an exclusive offer for listeners of the Woodworking Talk Show. Get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TWTS at manscaped.com. The Lawnmower 4.0 is a sleek, well-designed and optimized trimmer that makes shaving a breeze. It's rechargeable and waterproof so you can use it in the shower. And guys, this is not the same shaver you use on your face. Gross. It's got ceramic blades with advanced skin-safe technology. So you can feel confident shaving everywhere else. Trust me on this one. You're going to love this shaver. Here's a personal tip. Get rid of that belly hair too. Show off those abs. And thin that chest hair. Show off those pecs. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TWTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And use the code TWTS. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the right job with Manscaped. Bob Clagget was a software engineer who started his YouTube channel back in May of 2013 and was able to ditch his day job after just 2 years. Wow. I Like to Make Stuff is a variety DIY channel featuring woodworking, metalworking, leatherwork, home improvement, programming, electronics, prop making, 3D printing, a little bit of auto mechanics, and that's lately been doing some auto mechanics. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And the channel also features a large dose of Star Wars and Legos.
Yes.
and to give you an idea of this diversity, over the past 8 years, Bob has made a katana, a secret room, don't tell anybody, a greenhouse, an R2-D2 from Star Wars, an arcade cabinet, a longboard, a zipline, beds, toys, games. I mean, that's just a fraction of his catalog of over 400 videos. Wow. In addition to that, Bob is the co-host of 2 podcasts, the long-running Making It and the No Instructions podcast. And somehow he has time to juggle all of this with a wife and 4 kids. Hey, Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. You know, I wanted to say something real quick.
Sure.
I wanted to thank you because I used to do an interview show long time ago, and you were one of the first guests on it, and it was a big deal for you to be on that show, and so thank you for doing that.
I remember that very well because you did it as, I think it was a live show too, didn't you?
Yeah. It's a terrible
scary.
idea.
See, I would never do that right now. See, I'm editing this part out right here. Edit. Okay, there it is. There. That's not even going to be in this show. So, no,
it was so funny though. I can't believe you cut that part out. Man, they're going to.
Yeah. That was the best part. Hey, I mentioned you have 4 kids. How old are your kids now?
They are almost 9 up to 14. So,
oh God, you got a teen.
I have 2. Yeah, and the other 2 are just right behind them. So, yeah.
What's that experience like for you so far, having a 14-year-old?
Well, 14-year-old boys are just smelly, kind of gross. They act a lot like 10-year-old boys. I mean, you know this. You had a son. They're just, they're great, though. I cannot complain. I was actually, earlier today, took the time to pull my oldest aside and tell him something that he did that I saw yesterday when he thought nobody was watching, and I was really proud of him. He acted in a way that was, when nobody's watching and you do the right thing, that means you're actually doing the right thing. And I was very proud to be able to tell him that I saw that, even though he wasn't trying to show it off. That was cool.
Aw.
Yeah.
Those are like the best dad moments when you can just jump in and do that. You're like,
yeah. It's nice to like, I don't know, at least me, I'll say me, not we. It's easy to get on to the kids all the time for all the little things that you don't want them to do. Super easy to forget about the things that they do that you're proud of and that you want to make a point to like encourage. And so, yeah, it feels nice and a little bit weird to turn it around and go out of your way to tell them that you're proud of them for something that you saw, or it was cool.
Everybody needs to take the time to do that. And it all happens so fast. You know, when I shot my first video for YouTube, my son was 10 years old, and it was fun. And he actually shot a lot of the video, and now he's 24. It's just like mind boggling to me. I'm like, how did this happen?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You think your kids are ever going to just like get into the family business?
I hope not.
No?
I hope not. Oh my goodness. YouTube is not the place that I want my kids to be. I guess that's the wrong thing to say, given what I do for a living, but yeah, that's the truth.
Do they watch a lot of YouTube, or is that something you kind of control?
No, we're the overbearing parents that control everything. You know, we are pretty adamant about screen time and video games, and they don't have phones and stuff like that. And they, hate that, but
not bad.
It's my job to keep
14-year-old without a phone?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you torturer.
I know. But, yeah, I want to keep them away from that stuff as long as possible. Just because, I mean, when we were growing up, it was never the future, right? It was never a thing that we thought about we were going to have to be on screens all the time. And we are, no matter what we do for a job. And I know that they're going to end up being on a screen, connected to the world for the rest of their lives. And so I'm all about putting that off as long as possible, personally. But I hope they don't go to YouTube.
Have they any of them ever expressed an interest of doing YouTube, having a YouTube show or doing it?
Oh yeah. I mean, my oldest, he's loves video games. They don't get to play a ton, but he's talked about doing gaming channel stuff, which it's not my thing, so I don't want to encourage that so much. But my daughter wants to do photography, and she's got kind of a cool little thing she's interested in, and YouTube would actually be a pretty good place to show that off and to, there's a natural progression there, but it can be such a nasty place that I just don't want them there any more than they absolutely have to be. I know it's kind of like a necessary part of their schooling at this point, and where people go to learn all sorts of stuff, but I kind of want to keep them out of it as a creator and just let them consume as little as possible for a while.
Do you think that the platform has just changed since you've been in the game? I know when you started, you just like hit a home run pretty much right from the start. You were like really, your channel experienced huge growth right at the very beginning, maybe around 2015 or so. Yeah. I think that was like really. Do you think that there's much has changed on YouTube now that would make that more difficult for you to do?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's way more saturated. At that time, I was coming in on the heels of you and Mark and just a couple of people who had been doing it for a while. And there was just so much space. People were clamoring for content, and now you couldn't possibly keep up with all the people that you're interested in. There's just too much of it. So I think, I was really blessed and lucky to get in at a particular time when there was an appetite. And I think now, maybe the appetite's still there, but there's plenty to go around. There's plenty of content. So, but I think as far as like YouTube as a place to be, a place to spend time, I don't think it's necessarily any more aggressive or toxic or anything than it used to be, but the volume of people has gone up, and a single creator is still a single person. And so the input and output that you have with your audience or with the people of YouTube, whether they're your audience or not, that IO is so much higher, but you're still the same. And I think that's, at least in my mind, that's how it's changed. It affects a single person a lot more than it used to.
Right, definitely. Did you see the William Osman video? You probably did.
I did.
Recently.
Yeah.
And so he had a video, and I don't really know if he's going to stop making videos. It was unclear to me. Did you understand if like this is it? He's not going to make videos anymore, or was it just kind of a venting?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't get the feeling that he's going to stop making them, but I definitely think he was at a turning point of just not knowing what to do and not knowing whether he wanted to continue on. And I've been in that exact same spot. And
anybody who's a YouTube creator probably watched that video and could relate to a lot of what he was talking about. And I know I would watch it and I would think, oh my God, this is really kind of my channel. I feel like it's the exact same way. And at the same time, I have these mixed feelings about it, because a lot of what he was talking about was how a single bad negative comment can just basically kind of ruin your day. And it's all true, but at the same time, I have to I always like to say that the only thing worse than negative comments are YouTubers whining about negative comments, because it feels like we've got such a privileged job to begin with. It's not like, guys who have to actually, climb utility poles or do like real work. But at the same time, wow, that one hit home. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Like on Making It, we've over the years spent several full days talking about the frustration of comments and how painful it can be to just get certain type of feedback. And it does feel a little entitled, to be complaining in that place. But at the same time, I have to recognize in myself that I don't complain about those things everywhere that I could because I understand that, that it's not really a fun thing to listen to. And I think one of the things that was really cool about William's video was that at least I hope, it humanized the general creator to some of the audience. Because I think people get in like this thing where a person on YouTube is like far off and they're some, castle that they get to do whatever they want and they're not affected by anything. Maybe that's the impression that some of us have given. And if so, then that's on us, right? That's on me, because I'm not as vulnerable in those things as I should be. But I hope that it kind of humanized the impact that comments, positive and negative, can have. Because I know that when I watched his video, I immediately sent him a message and said, thank you for speaking for a lot of us. Because that's what it felt like. It felt like, oh, wow, he's actually being vulnerable enough to say how hurt he is. And I've been there, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to sound like a whiner,
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It was good. It was a very good video.
Do you consider making videos as equal a maker activity as making things?
No, I think they're totally different, honestly. I guess they're the same in that, sewing a shirt is the same as making a cabinet. You're still making a thing. You're still problem solving. You're still taking something and turning it into something else. But like for me, video is not my medium of choice, but it is the medium of choice to get the things that I'm interested in to other people. So, and I've been blessed enough to have some people that I've been able to work with, and we've got a little team, and their passions are shooting video, making things look amazing. And so like that's their form of making. And so I get to fall back a little bit more to the stuff that I feel is more me, the actual hands-on type stuff.
How many people are on your team now?
So there's 4 of us full-time, and then my wife is part-time. She does like shipping and stuff. And then we've got a couple contractors that do editing for podcasts and things like that.
Did you ever edit your own video? You probably edited your videos to begin with, didn't you?
Yeah, for the first maybe 2 years. And then a buddy of mine came on and like he would come in one day a week and edit the videos. And he's actually one of our full-time guys now.
Do you think that you've been able to stave off some burnout over the years by having a lot of people help out, and it just kind of keeps the ship
not all
running?
of it.
Or do you still feel a sense of isolation?
Not isolation as much, but I definitely have hit burnout multiple times. I've definitely hit, just the lack of motivation, which is another one of those entitled things. It's so weird to have a job where you are basically 100% in control of what you do and when you do it and how it's done and all that stuff, and still feel just like bleh about it sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's definitely been helpful to have a team of people, mainly because it works against the isolation. You know, I don't feel alone in my basement as much. But also just to have people to kind of temper, you know, my tendency to like go super deep on the wrong thing, or to spend too much time thinking about something and not thinking about something else. And having just some other heads in the room is really helpful to kind of even all that stuff out. And they're all great guys. Like, they're people that I've, that I would hang out with if we weren't working together. And so that makes the time together really productive, but also just relaxed and fun and natural. And it's not, I don't feel like we have a hierarchy. You know, I don't feel like I'm in charge of a bunch of people. We're a team.
You're a slave driver.
Right.
Get to work, guys. They're like, oh man, here comes old man Clagget.
Right.
Look busy.
Well, and it's kind of weird because, like, you can see behind me if you're watching the video, like, there's nothing there. There used to be people in this room.
Yeah.
This is in my basement, and we just got an office, so they've moved out to this office space, and they all work because they're good workers and not because I'm there. But I have the feeling if I'm not around working, then I'm not being the example I should be for them to do their jobs and that type of thing, which is just totally me. But I can see that more in myself now that they are not here. I'm here by myself, and they are somewhere else being adults, doing their jobs without me, and they don't require me to do that. And that's really encouraging. It shows me like how good the people are. Like, you know, I don't have to worry about leaving and then them just like shutting everything down and playing ping pong or whatever. Like, it's pretty cool. But I've only really seen that in the last few weeks when they moved out of here, and this is now my own personal office for the first time, which is weird. But
so you just bought a new building, and that's an impressive looking space. That is just a huge. Yeah. And so what are the plans for that? I saw your video, and it didn't sound like you were revealing completely what all you were going to do with it. Are you moving your shop over there?
No, the shop's going to stay here.
You're not?
No, we don't want to change. I'm not trying to like just amp everything up and like get a warehouse and, you know, industrial shop or anything like that. The biggest thing, honestly, was that my basement, since we moved into this house, has been business. And we filled up every corner of the basement's the size of the whole house, and we filled up every bit of it. And so a big part of this was just kind of trying to separate work from home a little bit, not fully, give some of the house back to the kids. So, because like on the other side of this wall where I'm looking, this was my grandparents' house when I was growing up, and I bought it after my grandfather passed. And in that room at Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff, we would come over and play pool. And so it was me and my cousins in that room, and I have so many memories of having a good time there. And since we've moved into this house, I've monopolized that room completely for podcasts and, you know, this and that. And when I look in there, I think, man, there should be a pool table in there for my kids to use. And they need to have that room. It's just a room, doesn't matter, but I don't need to have all this. You know, these offices, the podcast stuff, all that can go somewhere else. It doesn't need to be in the home anymore. So that's really the biggest thing. And on top of that, we're also, we want to make stuff to sell. We want to make tools, not like screwdrivers and tools, but we want to do things to enable other people to make stuff. That's the point. That's the point of all this. And so we can't do that in a basement. And so another use for that space is having a place to focus on designing things, manufacturing things that we can do in-house as much as possible, have a place to ship things and not worry about clogging up my mailbox. You know,
right.
We need a place that can focus on that stuff that is independent of me and of my home and my schedule, that kind of stuff.
Is that the biggest challenge facing your channel, or is just growing it? And how do you do that? And is this just like one big step in that direction?
I think I'm the biggest challenge for the channel. I mean,
well, you're the face.
I think that's a problem. And it's something I've been trying to figure out since the beginning, is how am I not the face all the time without people know your channel for you. They come to see Steve, right?
Yes. Same exact thing. I could never just like, it just has to be me, it couldn't be somebody else.
But at the same time, if you want to take a break, you want to take some time off, if you want to do whatever, everything reflects that. So, and I know nobody's going to crack this thing where you can have a job, but also have time off. And, unless we come up with some sort of AI face that can do videos for us and we don't actually have to be there.
Yeah, really.
That's an idea. But I think I'm still the bottleneck for so many things, and trying to create a place for smart people like that I work with to make cool things to enable other people to make the things that they want to have. That should not require my face, and it should not require my time completely. And so we're trying really hard to do that, because I want this thing to be bigger than my face and my name and my lifetime, and it should not be about me. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, as far as the channel, I don't know that I can ever get away from that until I'm just old enough and ugly enough that nobody wants to watch anymore. So.
I'm getting there. Has the kind of changing landscape of YouTube informed how you make your videos, or do you still kind of approach it the same way as always?
I try not to let it affect how I make the videos. I'm sure it does. I don't think that would be realistic to say that it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I try not to be too affected by the opinions of a faceless crowd, because those opinions will change, and it's just a game of chasing stuff that you can't ever catch. And so I try not to do that. But at the same time, I have to say that I understand more now that people don't have the attention span for certain things in certain situations, and they do at other times. And so I try to change the presentation a little bit to capture when I think it's going to be appropriate. A friend of mine who does YouTube has this cool graph that he does when he's thinking about a video, and he starts off completely non-technical, and as he moves into the video, he gets more and more technical, and this graph goes up, and to the point to where somebody start to kind of fade away and be like, I don't really know what's going on anymore. And then he drops it all the way back down to grab them again. And then finishes out the video with the resolution of whatever he's trying to teach. And him showing me that and saying that he's seen specific evidence of people watching a video and feeling those oh, this is too technical, I just whatever. And then he grabs them real quick and they hang on till the end. That was kind of eye-opening to me, to be like, oh wait, there's a psychology to this that's not to manipulate people, but just to reach them where they are. And so I think, if anything, I've tried to change stuff a little bit over the years to guess at that. I'm no psychologist, I don't know, but as far as topical stuff, I still am too much of a nerd to not make Star Wars videos, even though it's not popular. I'm too much of I'm not going to give those things up. So,
are all of your projects ideas yours, and are you the one who comes up with every project idea to put out there?
Not everyone, most of them. Mm-hmm. I still feel like if I were to take other people's ideas, from the team or whatever, I feel a lot less invested in those, and I think that comes across. So, if anything, we try to take an idea, no matter who it comes from, and brainstorm it in the room on the whiteboard, and everybody gets some input in it, And then occasionally I'll just go off and make a video by myself. I'll shoot it myself. I won't tell anybody I'm doing it. I'll do it over the weekend, just to be this is what it was like several years ago when I was just, I've got 2 hours to make a video. I'm going to go do it. So still try to do that sometimes.
What kind of videos perform best on your channel?
Woodworking stuff.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I still get comments of people oh, I wish you would go back to woodworking. Really? Huh.
You were never really a woodworking channel.
No, not really. I didn't mean to be. Maybe I was, and I didn't. But I have noticed over the years that, when people are introduced to any creator of any kind, they make that assumption, the first thing they see, that's what this person is. And I think
I really miss the old Bob personally.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, the mistake I made was assuming that was not going to be the case and just doing something different every, couple of videos or whatever. And I tried to set the expectation that you should know what to expect, but I don't think that came across.
Well, it would just take a quick look through your most popular videos. Okay, here's an example of what Bob's got on his channel. Your most popular videos are the katana, secret door, river table, screen printing, attic remodel. You have a greenhouse, a dust collector. That is a huge variety of stuff on there. So yeah, people will come in there. I can't imagine somebody, jumping in to watch the dust collector, how to set up a dust collector system is probably going to be watching something with more electronics. Maybe, I could be wrong, but do you think that variety has segmented your audience, or do you think that's helped to kind of get people to understand this is a huge thing, that it's all encompassing making and you can watch any of these?
I mean, I think kind of both. I think the bigger thing is that it has segmented the audience more. I think if you look at anybody who focuses on something, you look at the type of consistent views that person would have. Like your stuff is consistently within the same area, and I'm sure that the views on somebody who focuses on a thing are probably far higher than mine, because somebody comes in for a woodworking project on mine and the next week it's a prop thing and they're like, I don't care about that, and so they just don't watch it. But the same prop person doesn't care about the YouTube thing, or the woodworking thing.
Right.
Yeah, so I think when I could have a kind of higher floor of views, if I was more focused, it's just not there. And that's okay.
It also seems to be like anymore, you kind of have to be really extreme with what you're making. Even if you're a woodworker or whatever, you've got to do the massive epoxy tables, or if you're a maker, you like the, what's the channel, Stuff Made Here. The guy blew up last year. He's just a year ago, and the guy, every video gets just millions of views, and it's just like these outrageous outrageous projects that I think it's that lean back experience. And
I don't know how, I've talked about this several times, I don't know how that's sustainable. You look at like Colin Furs, who just makes a bigger, more explodey version of whatever he made last month. Like, how do you keep upping that? I that's not a thing I could even try. It's just not my personality to try to one up myself or anybody else. And it's exhausting enough trying to just do something on a schedule, much less trying to make it bigger and crazier.
Yeah. I think that the key is just to not worry too much about views, because I think across the board, especially this year, views are down on YouTube. It doesn't even matter what kind of channel you are. It's just, I think people are getting back out into the world a little bit, and probably not watching. Did 2020, did you see a big growth in your channel?
No. We saw numbers went down.
Oh, really?
Which I was really surprised at. I mean, I assumed once everybody stayed home for a while, they would get bored with puzzles, whatever, and start consuming a whole lot of media. And I guess maybe they did. But I also, we talked a lot about this, and I think part of it was that most of us live our lives around routines, and when those routines are disrupted, we don't necessarily try to hold the routine. So I think a lot of people who would watch our videos would watch them at lunchtime or over the weekend. And when there's no schedule, there is no lunchtime. Right. You just don't think about it,
Sure.
So we saw a pretty big drop off in most things through 2020, which was kind of weird. And I feel like it came kind of back up at the end of the year, but then you're right. This year has been kind of down again for everybody.
It's flatlining. It's just... Well, I think it's like stabilized right now, but definitely I think, and it's not just maker woodworking, it's just everyone on YouTube. There's lots of the views have dropped. I want to go back to something. Very first video. Okay, this is my favorite thing to do on every YouTube channel. Let's go back to the very first video posted. So, okay, May 21st, 2013. Here's your first video. Tough Mudder 2013, Department of Redundancy Department. That's still on there. I love that you just have that first video, and it's you running one of these Tough Mudder races, which I've always been wanting to do for the past couple of years. I still may do one of those, but what inspired you to put up that video? And then it wasn't until like your third video where you're like, oh, well, you know, I should probably do making stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, when I put that video up, it wasn't supposed to be anything. I had no aspiration of any of this stuff.
You probably wanted to just show it to some friends who were running in that with you.
Yeah, we had a whole group of us that had run that race together. And so before all of I Like to Make Stuff, I used to do music on YouTube. So I had another channel where I played music and recorded music with other people, and we would mix the songs together and put them online. And so when I put that video up, it was like, well, I can't put it on the music channel, so I may as well just stick it over here on this other unused thing. It's still there, apparently.
Was the channel called I Like to Make Stuff at that point, or did you have to change that retroactively a little bit?
I think it probably was called that, just because I had the domain for a really long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just used it for my own personal site that was kind of just random stuff. So.
Well, outside of those first two videos, you just jumped right in, and your first one was how to make a vacuum former. I think that was like such a cool video because it kind of gave an overview of kind of what you might expect on the channel. You had your intro in place. You had a cool project that I'd never seen before. I didn't know anything about this, forming things out of plastic, and it just seemed like you knew exactly what you wanted to do right from that first video.
Kind of. So I had been watching, your videos, some Jimmy's, and a few other people, and was like kind of picking all the parts that I really was drawn to from everybody else's process and style and everything, and was trying to put them together. And man, it's terrible to look back at those old videos and just how bad they're really bad. The content may be all right, but the video's bad. So that's definitely something I did not pick up from anybody else. I didn't take have a personality. I didn't.
Well, that's true across the board. You look at any channel, their first videos, who hasn't started with a full production team, kind of old school YouTube, and they always start like they're so robotic. You really have to kind of amp up your personality a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, it's weird.
Is there anything that you would like to try? I'm getting ahead here. Let's talk about making things. Is there a technique, a craft, anything that you haven't tried on your channel that you'd like to just give a shot?
Oh yeah, there's still tons of stuff. I mean, we were actually talking the other day about maybe doing a series of things that I'm afraid of, because I think there's a bunch of types of things to make and a bunch of skills that I just haven't really, even if I've tried them before, I'm nowhere near comfortable. Like I bought a Bridgeport because I was really interested in doing metalwork and milling and just understanding it. It feels like a whole different world to me, and then maybe that's because I don't have any experience in it. And I bought this Bridgeport, and I've had it for maybe a year and a half, and I've used it a couple of times. I'm terrified of it. Like it's huge and loud and sharp, and I'm scared of it, And so I would like to be able to take any tool that I have and feel comfortable enough that, oh yeah, there's a thing I want to make. I can go to the tool and I can figure it out. And that one and the metal lathe that I have are both just really scary to me. Like I don't want to get hurt. And so I would really like to learn how to use those things safely and feel confident enough to use them or to figure them out. I think a lot of other tools you can kind of muddle your way through and figure it out as you go along, but you're not going to die in the process. And like those two, like I'm a little scared. But then there's even other stuff like sewing. I would love to be comfortable sewing, and I've only done it a couple of times. So I don't really have the.
Do you have a sewing machine?
Yeah, we have one, and I've done some leather sewing. But
you just recently had a leather video. I think your most recent video was making a leather tool pouch.
Yeah. For some reason, that seems simpler than like a real sewing machine and neat seams and, how to overlap things to get them to fold correctly and stuff. Like there's a bunch of details there that I really respect when I see my mom. I grew up with my mom sewing, and she made a bunch of clothes for us and costumes and all sorts of stuff. And they were always so well done. And that seems really far off without a whole lot of practice. So there's a bunch of things like that that I feel like I would really need to just focus on for a long time to be able to do them well. But
sewing seems so freehand to me. When I see somebody running a seam or something, I always like feel like there should be a rip fence there or something. Like, how do you keep that straight? Do you just not?
Yeah, I don't. So that's
Maybe that's it. We need to come up with rip fences for sewing machines. Maybe I don't know. Was there ever a time where you started building something and you just threw in the towel? You're like, oh, man, this is not working out.
Yeah, I tried to make a Frisbee launcher, which other people have made successfully. So it's me. I'm the problem. But I tried to make one, and I looked at how other people had done it, and there's a bunch of different ways that people have done it. I tried to replicate one for proof of concept, and it just like didn't really work. And so then I tried something totally different. Didn't really work, and we spent a couple of weeks trying to get this thing to really launch, and it just didn't work. Like, you'd get a couple of feet. It was like the of frisbees. Like, it just was not a good Frisbee launch. And that thing, the mechanism that we kind of cobbled together, is still in the garage. It's sitting in there. So someday when I have a light bulb, I can go in there and try to make it work. But that was a failure.
Do you ever think back to your early projects, and are there any that you'd like to remake? And just like think like, hey, now here it is, almost 8 years later or whatever. I think I could do a much better job of this, and even a better video presentation if I wanted to.
I'm sure I could probably do all of them better. But I tend to be a little disconnected from the stuff after I make it, for the most part.
It's just out there.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, well, so one thing I guess is that I don't have the level of precision and perfection that a lot of other people may have about something. So if something ends up doing its job but it doesn't look 100% perfect, that's fine. I don't care. And so as long as it's still doing its job, looking back at it a couple years later, if it still doesn't look good, that's not really worth, if something breaks, I'll rebuild it, but I don't really care to go back and just make something prettier or make it more complex or whatever. I just kind of always feel like I'm going to keep moving ahead. And now I have done, like with the arcade cabinet, I've done a couple of those that are variations on a theme. But if I'm going to do that, I try to make sure that the construction's totally different, or it has some different feature, or, it's a different thing, could stand alone.
So, I learned that there's like a whole community of people who make R2D2 or something. Is this a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So I think to me, a lot of us, that has to be one of your most impressive projects. I mean, because you spent a lot of time working on that thing, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, it was over the course of 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of project you do a little bit, keep coming back to.
Yeah. It was funny when I first, because I've wanted to build one of those for years, and I used to go to at maker fairs and different events where all the builders would be together and they'd have all their droids out there. There were always droids that were completely finished. There were ones that were just the frame, ones that were like wouldn't move, but all different states. And I remember one time I went up to one of the guys and I was like, all right, give me the bottom line. How long and how much? and he goes,
a tough question.
2 to 5 years, $2,000 to $20,000. And I was like, what? Apparently somebody has spent $20,000 on an R2 unit. And but
somebody's only spent 2.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I mean, it's there's so many ways to do it, so many different levels of finish and functionality and all these different things, that it's a pretty fascinating group to look into, because some people are really technical and they care about the mechanics and the electronics, and some people just care about how it looks. It's got to look like the movie, and then everybody in between, and I think I'm probably somewhere in between there. But
what do you do with your R2? Is he still sitting around someplace, or do you just show him to guests over to your house?
He's in our dining room. I took it upstairs when we did the final.
Like the ultimate conversation piece.
Yeah.
It's better than that uncomfortable guest chair.
Yeah. Except that when kids come over, I'm always like, hey, everybody just stay away from R2D2. Don't.
Of course they want to touch it.
They're like, oh, wow. I'll get my grubby hands all over this thing that you spent 2 years on.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I took it up there to shoot some video, and assuming I would have to bring it back down. And it stayed up there for a couple days, and I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, do you care if we just kind of leave R2D2 in the living room? She's like, oh, no, I don't care. Like, sweet. So it is up there.
Do you enjoy the process of making things, or are you just more focused on, I just want to see this thing completed?
I enjoy the process a lot more, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it's funny, Josh, one of the guys that works with me, we have very different processes there about completing something. Like, he's definitely more of a, I want to do things efficiently, knock them off the list and whatever. And I will get stuck in a process, and then it takes way longer to get done just because, I don't know, I like to try something and not necessarily think it all the way through, and then if it doesn't work, I'm fine to do it again, and which can be pretty terrible when you're trying to hit a weekly schedule of making videos.
So there just comes a point where you just have to get over those hurdles and think, okay, I guess I'll just have to go with what I have here.
Yeah, I mean, when I try things multiple times, is not to get them perfect. It's more just to see what other options there are. Like, I don't feel the need to make sure that the grout is always perfect on every tile job, and that, you know, every paint stroke is perfect. And I don't know, I just like the process of doing it. And I think that's actually one of the frustrating things about the weekly schedule that I put myself on. Fully self-imposed, terrible thing.
I don't know how you do it.
Well, I have a team of people that help me do it.
Yeah.
But one of the bad things there is that, you know, I would like to spend a little bit more time on things and just explore them a little bit more, but I have to cut that part of it short. And so that makes it a little frustrating to just have to get something done when I would really like to spend a little bit more time on it. And it's a weird catch-22, because you could have more in-depth, bigger, longer-term projects, but then you can't put them out as often. And if they don't hit, or people are not interested, then you spend a lot more time on something that people are not interested in. So that's a line that we're always trying to kind of ride, where we have a couple of projects, longer term things, and that are happening in the background. So one day a week I'll do some of this, and then the next day I'll do some of this, and then I have a couple of days to do a shorter project to fit into the schedule. So we have, you know, I've got this car that I'm working on, and I had R2D2 for a while and stuff like that. So we have long-term stuff in the background.
Yeah, so let's talk about that car. I don't think I remember you doing automotive stuff. Maybe a couple little accessories or something on your channel before, but is this something totally new to you, or do you have any kind of history doing mechanical mechanics?
I know nothing about cars. So I decided to take one apart. And yeah.
So you're like completely disassembling this. It's a Carmen Ghia,
Yep,
right?
Yep, 1970.
What year is that?
1970.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, the good thing is it's probably the simplest possible car you could take apart. You know, it's not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're very basic cars, and so, you know, there's nothing really complex about any of the systems. It's a small engine, easy to work on, easy to get to, all that type of stuff. But this is kind of how I like to learn stuff, is just taking it apart and then trying to put it back together and hoping that all the stuff goes back where it's supposed to go. And, you know, along the way, I'm already doing research about body work and all these things that I'm trying to, at this point, build a list of things that I need to look up, because I honestly don't know anything about cars. And so as I was taking things off of it, I was like, all right, I got to go look at what this is so that I can put the right name on the bag and then put it in the order, so that when I go to look things up, I'm like looking stuff up in the right order. But I enjoy that part of it.
Man, that's what totally intimidates me about that kind of thing. Taking things apart, no problem. But man, I'm always afraid I'm never going to get it back together the way it was. And you must have a system worked out of just organizing all of those parts and pieces and whatnot.
Well, I mean, kind of. I mean, just using plastic bags, and as I'm taking things out, I'm bagging them and labeling them and putting them in these bins that are kind of grouped together. But one of the cool things about that particular car, or, you know, any old Volkswagen, is that it is so well documented. I mean, there's been, for, you know, 60 or 70 years, people who have tried to keep those cars alive as long as possible. So there's tons of resource, tons of reproduction parts, tons of everything about it. So it would be a lot harder if I took an obscure car and tried to do that same thing where there wasn't a community around it already. But
how's the reaction been to those videos of restoring the car? Have they gone over
it's
well?
been pretty good. it's been interesting because some people are super passionate about it, and they're like, stop doing all this other stuff and just do the car, which I can't.
Right.
And then some people, they think it's neat, but they're not into it, and that's fine.
See, I to me, that stuff is just fascinating. I love watching. There's one of my favorite YouTube channels is Aging Wheels. I don't know if you know Aging Wheels. Robert Dunn. He also has a woodworking channel, but because he's kind of the same way. He's sort of, even though he knows so much about cars, but it's all just self-taught, and it's interesting to see him kind of go through the process of figuring out, how to replace a gas tank in his old car and how to figure out, because a lot of the times you just can't buy parts anymore for this stuff, so you kind of have to make them.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that way that pretty much everything is available for this car, because there again, I don't have the fabrication skills to be able to make. I mean, I can make some stuff, but I'm definitely not like a metal worker. I wouldn't call myself that at all. So if it came down to making some really complex thing, I'm going to be leaning on people I know and YouTube big time, and I'm gonna have to do that. Right. I mean, there's a lot of body work that I'm gonna have to do that's super curvy and compound curves and all this stuff. No clue. So lots of Googling ahead of me.
Have you always been into Lego, by the way?
Since the beginning.
Yeah, your whole life.
I actually found a picture a couple of days ago where I was probably 3, and it's marked at the bottom, Bobby's first Lego set or something like that, and it's me holding this big Lego box from, I don't know, 1970 or something, 73 or what year would that be? I was born in 77, so it wasn't one of those. 1980 is when it would have been. Yeah.
And they didn't really have like model kits back then that I remember. I just remember you got like a box of Lego and you would just build whatever you wanted with all. It was
just a bunch of blocks.
Yeah. And now it's like there's some seriously, I mean, some of these sets are amazing, and they're like real models that you just don't want to take apart or anything. There's like
they've put a big focus into adults now, so they have this whole like adults welcome thing, and they have these big models, like this Titanic set they just put out that has like 9,000 pieces or something. Yeah, I'm not gonna get that one.
I heard about that. My son kind of keeps me informed on the Lego, even though he doesn't play with them anymore. It was interesting seeing your Lego sorter and then the Lego storage system you came up with, because everybody seems to have a different way of organizing Legos. And what we did was we had all those little parts drawers, these plastic parts drawers. We had just so many of these things. And so he had them organized and labels on each of the drawers for like different size plates and different size wheels and plants and all of these things. And so he eventually just got tired of playing with them. So I thought, I'm not getting rid of these Legos at all. So we just took them and I put big plastic wrap all around those parts drawers, and they're still here. They're in my crawl space now. So someday, but he had so many Legos. I mean, it was just such a huge part of his childhood. It was really cool. But I think now he's kind of thinking, I kind of wish I had those back again.
I've still got all mine. Like, the ones in the videos are my kids. Those are not mine. Yeah. My collection is hidden away, in another place where they can't play with them. They're mine.
I was reading somewhere, I don't know if this is true or not, that the most printed word ever might be Lego, because it's printed on every stud of every brick, and there's usually like billions of bricks around. So I don't know if that beats out the word "the" or not, but it could be.
It could be. I've also heard that they're actually the largest, for quantity, they are the largest tire manufacturer in the world.
That's right. Yeah, I haven't thought of that. I mean, with everything you've got going on and all your different interests, do you find it hard to just relax? And I mean, what do you do in your downtime when you want to? Is there something you like to do that doesn't involve picking up a video camera?
I really enjoy music. Like, I've always played music my whole life, and for the past several years, I really didn't play very much. And recently, in the last year or so, I started practicing piano again daily, having just sit down and learn some classical music again, and that's been like so nice. It's been nice to have a task that is not for anybody else, Nobody's going to see it. I don't post about it on Instagram that I'm practicing piano or anything like that. It's just my family can enjoy it if they want to, but also just I get to do something and get better at it just for the sake of being better at it. So that's been a big thing.
It feels like sometimes we get into this thought that, well, it doesn't happen unless I could share it on social media, and it's sometimes it's hard to reel that in and think, I just need time to just do the things I want to do and not have to document any of it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if it were up to me, if I could somehow be independently wealthy, I would just go. I said this the other day somewhere. I would go into the woods in a cabin and play piano and be with my family and just like not. I don't want to show off anymore. You know what I mean? It was never about showing off, but like I don't know. I guess I'm getting to the age where I would like more time for me and for my family and for the focus inward rather than outward a little bit more. And piano has been one of the ways that I do that because all my kids play piano. We've been giving them lessons for a few years, and so that's been a cool time where music is becoming a thing that we don't necessarily play together, but we speak the same language. And as they're struggling with learning something new, I can come in and help them and then motivate them. There's this piece I've been playing that was a Chopin piece, and I've been learning it. It's very difficult. And he published it when he was 7, so it's difficult for me. But
he was just flexing.
Yeah, exactly. But so I've been playing that, and the other day I heard my daughter trying to figure out this song, this really hard piece of music, and she was learning it because she heard me playing it, and that felt really good just because it's pushing her to do something that her teacher's not giving her. She's trying to get better just for the sake of being better. And so that's been really cool. Outside of that, as a hobby, I have aquariums that
interesting.
Yeah, like really heavily planted aquariums that it's kind of like gardening. Every week I have to make sure they have all of the right stuff and trim them and clear out the dead stuff.
Is it salt water?
No, I do freshwater tanks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. And you still run?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I run a lot.
Marathons?
I haven't done a marathon in a while. I did a half marathon a couple of years ago, and then I decided this year I was just going to set a mileage goal. And so I need some sort of a goal to hit. Otherwise, I don't really have the motivation to do it. So I'm just going to run 1,000 miles this year. Doesn't matter how fast or slow, or by the end of the year, 1,000 miles. And so I'm just barely keeping up with that, but I'm still kept up with it.
You actually one of the key people that got me interested in running a long time ago.
Really?
You probably don't know this, but it was at a time in my life when I was like having to just change everything about myself. And one of those things was I got to get healthier. And I saw you had posted and I don't even remember if it was a video or it might have been on Instagram video. And you were showing, I think, your Garmin watch and talking about how much you had run a certain time and some of your goals. And I just thought, maybe I'll try that. And I tried, this is probably 7 years ago, tried running around the block, less than a quarter mile, and I couldn't make it. And I thought, this has got to change. And so I just kept that process up. And then in 2 years ago, ran 2 marathons.
Wow.
It was just amazing what your body can do if you... I don't think I'll do it again. I think I've checked it off my list. I actually prefer the half marathons. I think were actually more fun. I think it's a good strenuous activity, and you really feel it afterward. But the marathon, they beat me up.
Yeah.
Man, I was like, that's painful.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. I've done a couple. I've finished 2, and then one of them got cut short for stuff outside of our control. And I keep thinking like it'd be cool to maybe go back and do, to finish 5 before I'm 50 or something. And then I'm like, that's a lot of work. I don't know. I remember hitting that wall and feeling like I want to die, but I still have to run a couple of miles. And
what was the wall for you? What mileage?
I think about 22.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the same for me. 22 miles. It was like, damn.
What a terrible feeling. It really is. It is bad.
It's the worst.
And I've tried to explain it to other people who have never done it, and I don't know how to explain it well, but not good.
Yeah. My goal with both of those marathons was to be able to run, even if I had to run slowly, but to not have to stop and walk. And I didn't do that. It was at 22 miles. I had to stop and I had to walk for a little bit, and then I could pick it back up. But for the most part, I was able to run it, albeit not very fast, but I was able to.
My first one, I had to stop, and a guy passed me who was probably mid-60s. And he was like, "You better not let this old man beat you," and then just went zoom.
Oh, there's always that guy. Every race, there's always the guy who's like 80 or something. He's like just plowing. I'm like, damn, how's this happen? But I think that I don't know if it's really the healthiest activity to do that anyways. I don't think it's really good for your body to. I think probably running is probably good, but probably not that extent. Is probably more damage than it's worth.
Especially, the older you get, I can imagine that it's just harder and harder on you. But I agree that the half marathon it's a challenge, but also not going to wreck you for a week, and you don't have to spend like your entire life running to train for it, that's tiresome.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is that to train for a marathon, you really got to take some time. I did like a 16-week real planned out kind of schedule I was following. And you never, when you're training for a marathon, you don't actually run a marathon during any of that training. I think at the most I ran was maybe a 20 mile, maybe not even quite that.
Do you still run a lot throughout the week?
I don't. I do short runs just to get some cardio in, but I switched over to just weight training. So I'm just doing weight training, bodybuilding.
Do you feel like that when you don't keep up with that, do you feel like it affects everything else at this point?
When I don't keep up running?
Yeah, or training or whatever. Like if you take some time off. I've noticed that now that I'm in a habit, if I take a day or two off just because I'm tired, it feels like it kind of slows everything else down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It becomes a whole lifestyle. And I think that's not just exclusive to running. I think it's fitness in general. As I've, again, these past 7 years, life change, everything, is that if I stop working out, say we go out of town on vacation or something, and I'm not able to get to a gym, I'm not able to work out, I mean, it totally affects me, everything. When I get back, I feel flabby. I probably didn't eat well. But usually I think people find once you start getting into physical activity like that, it also involves nutrition, just your general well-being, it's all encompassing. Yeah. So you're still doing the 2 podcasts. Man, that podcast, you just had your 7th anniversary for the Making It podcast.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know what we've talked about for 7 years, but still doing it.
That's amazing. And you have the other one too, the No Instructions podcast. So that's just kind of like you guys just talk about.
Yeah, something. We end up talking about, we have kids around the same age as mine, are a little bit older, so we end up talking about parenting stuff and movies and just kind of life stuff. It's real relaxed, but it's fun. I really enjoy podcasting, and I would like to figure out how to do more of it, kind of focus on some different stuff, but it's a kind of a difficult thing to make it worthwhile from a money perspective.
Oh, yeah. I don't make any money off of this other than an occasional sponsor. Thank you, Manscaped. And here and there, but I don't know. It's hard because there's no real numbers associated with it. As far as I know, all you get is like download numbers. Right. It's like, well, that doesn't tell me much. I'm used to YouTube, which gives me way too much information.
Gives you something to obsess over. Yeah.
Are you an analytics guy? Do you two look at your analytics, or does it drive you crazy?
I glance at them, but I've really tried to pull myself away from looking at numbers and keeping track of comments and all of the stuff over the last few years. I found that it was not good for me. So
it's not, is it? Really not. You'd be way better out. Just go out and run a mile.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't be obsessing over that stuff. Hey, before we go, let me ask you one question. If a person, what would you think is the most important skill everybody should know if they want to make things? It would be like across the board. If no matter what you want to make, this is going to be helpful.
Oh man, that's tough. Skill. I mean, I think being able to brainstorm a couple of steps ahead in problem solving for me has been one of the most beneficial things. Not to just look at how do I stick these two things together, but if I stick these two things together in this way, what is that going to cause 2 or 3 steps down the road?
Oh, interesting.
I think, just taking the time to imagine what could be if you do something a certain way is not necessarily going to be right, but at least you're not just focusing on the problem that's right in front of you. You're thinking about a couple of more problems. And I think especially once you get into mixing material types and, different skill sets and stuff, you have to think how they relate to each other. And that's something that always really interested me, is thinking through a project before I actually do anything. And I don't always do that, but it is an interesting thing that I like.
So what's next for the I like to make stuff empire?
I really want us not to just be producing more stuff. I really want us to produce things that are gonna help people make stuff. Like that's
right.
So I hope that we can actually do that. And we're still going to be doing the same types of videos. I'm still working on the car, but at the same time I'm also looking ahead to, I would really like to build a cabin on some property that we have, and
like a log cabin,
probably like an A-frame,
cool.
I'd like to have a place where we can go for the weekend. It's in town, so it's not far away, but a place where we can go and just kind of be somewhere else to kind of disconnect. And I've never built anything of that size at all. Like I've built decks, I've never like an actual.
That's like heavy duty carpentry right there.
It's something. It's another one of those things that I'm terrified of. I'm terrified of all of the process. I don't know nothing about it, but that's kind of what makes it interesting. So I don't know when that'll happen. That could be another 5-10 years, but that's something I'm looking at, trying to figure out what to figure out.
Well, Bob, I really want to thank you for joining me on this podcast. I wish you continued success with everything you've got coming up.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to see you, and thanks for having me on here.
And thanks for listening, everybody. I'll see you next time.